Assalamu alaikum to our lecturer, Ms. Nurul Hassana binti Hamzah, and to all my friends. We are from Group 1. We'll be going to discuss about our group project for financial ratio analysis for SMIS Corporation Berhad. Financial statement analysis is part of business analysis that assesses firm past, present, and anticipated future financial performance to evaluate companies' prospects and risks for the purpose of making business decisions. Financial analysis consists of liquidity ratio, leverage ratio, profitability ratio, and income ratio. Company background. SMIS Corporation Berhad resident company in Malaysia that have incorporated since 1999. SMIS Corporation Berhad is a speculation holding organization with other several big companies. The company owner is Ng Wai Kee that acts as an executive director with 4 other board of directors and shareholder members. The company drew its auxiliaries, make and exchange car floor coverings, produce car slowing down and bike segments, and exchange hardware and modern part supplies.
Okay, hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Iqbal Hakim bin Muhammad Zabidin, and today, firstly, I will present about the liquidity ratio for Smith Corporation Berhad. And basically, liquidity ratio consists of two components, which are current ratio and exit test ratio. But firstly, I will present about the current ratio first. So, what is current ratio? Current ratio is a liquidity ratio that measures a company's ability to pay short-term obligations or tools due within 1 year, which means we calculate current ratio to see whether the company can pay its current liability using its current asset within 1 year. And if the current ratio of the company is between 1.5 and 3, it is indicate that the company have a healthy current ratio. But if the current ratio is less than 1, it basically show that the company have a liquidity problem. Okay, now I will show you the current ratio for the Smith Corporation Berhad and how to calculate it. Firstly, the formula for the current ratio is quite simple, which is current asset divided by current liability. We can find the amount of current asset and current liability in the statement of financial position. So as you can see, this is the extract of statement of financial position for Smith Corporation Berhad. For the current asset, we can see that the amount is 61,373,000 and the current liability is 31,374,000. After we get the amount of these two items, we can put in the formula and the answer we get is 1.96. So what is the meaning of 1.96? This is indicate that for every 1 ringgit of current liability, Smith Corporation Berhad has 1 ringgit and 96 cents of current assets to meet its short-term obligation. Okay, after we get the current ratio of the company, we need to compare it with the industry average to see the performance of company compared to other competitors. So industry average is 2.74, which is indicate that Smith Corporation Berhad's current ratio is basically lower than industry average by 0.78. And this situation is bad to the company because it indicates that the company have difficulty in paying its short-term obligation compared to other competitors. So the possible cause why the current ratio of company is lower than industry average because maybe the management may not utilize their asset efficiently, and the recommendation on how to increase the current ratio is the management can get rid all the unproductive asset in the business So by doing that, the company can focus more on spending money on the asset that can generate revenue to the business. Now let's move to the second element of liquidity ratio, which is asset test ratio. So what is asset test ratio? Asset test ratio is basically indicates whether a firm have enough current assets to cover its current liability without selling inventory. Asset test ratio also is more useful in certain situations compared to the current ratio because asset test ratio is formulated without inventory. So in other words, asset test ratio is more liquid compared to current ratio because we calculate assets that have high liquidity only. Okay, now I will show you the asset test ratio for the Smith Corporation Berhad and how to calculate it. So for the formula is current asset minus closing stock minus prepaid expenses, and we divide by the current liability. So we can find these items in the statement of financial position of company. So as you can see, this is the extract of statement of financial position, and now uh, we get all the amount of this item and we put in the formula, and we will get 1.32 for asset test ratio. So 1.32 is indicate that for every 1 ringgit of current liability, Smith Corporation Berhad has 1 ringgit and 32 cent of liquid assets to pay its current liability when it is due. Then same as current ratio, after we get the asset test ratio, we need to compare it with the industry average to see the performance of company compared to other competitors. And for the average industry, we get 2.37, which is indicate Smith Corporate Berhad's asset test ratio is lower than industry average by 1.05. And this condition is bad to the company because it is indicate that the company have difficulty in paying its current liability compared to other competitors. So the possible cause why asset test ratio is lower than average industry is because the company has more unpaid current liabilities such as trade creditor. So the solution on how to increase asset test ratio is the company can make payment to settle all short-term liability to reduce all the current liabilities.
Next is leverage ratio. Leverage ratio measures the level of debt or borrowings in a company. It also indicates whether the company uses more debt financing to finance the assets and operations as compared to equity financing. First, debt ratio. By dividing the company's total liability and total asset, we get 32.83% that indicates number of assets financed by liabilities and 67.17% financed by equity. Compared with industry average 57%, SMIS Corporation Berhad has lower percentage that is a good result. The possible cause can be happen when companies sell high of their share stock or have a high revenue with lower expense. The recommendation for the company is to lower their percent to 20% from industry average. Second is debt to equity ratio. By dividing company's total liability of Rm 36 and 970,000 and total equity of 6 and 135,000, we get 0.6, which is indicate the creditors provide 60 cents for each Rm 1 ringgit provided by stockholders to finance the assets. Compared with industry average, the company has lower results than industry average that show a good performance for the company. The possible cause can happen when high capital contributed by equity rather than creditors. Our recommendation is to increase the fund from investors to reduce reliance on equity. The last ratio of leverage ratio is time interest earned. The time interest earned ratio is 2.07 times. It means that the interest expense of the company are 2.07 times covered by its net operating income. The industry average is 3.335 and SMIS Corporation has lower ratio that show a poor performance for the company. The possible cause might be happen because the lower earning or high interest expense. Our recommendation is to lower the company's operating expense.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name Muhammad Faris bin Muhammad Rupi from AC1105F. My ATM number 2018204774. Today, I want to present about profitability ratio for our chosen company, which is Smith Corporation Berhad. Firstly, I will explain about what is profitability ratio. Profitability ratios are metrics that assess a company's ability to generate income relative to its revenue, operating costs, balance sheet asset, or shareholders' equity. Profitability ratios show how efficiently a company generates profit and value for shareholders. Higher ratio results are often more favorable, but ratio provide much more information when compared to results of similar companies, the company's own historical performance, or the industry average. Next, we will go to the profitability ratio for Smith Corporation Berhad. The first one is gross profit margin. The gross profit margin for Smith Corporation Berhad is 9.15%. Meanwhile, the industry average is 13.65%. The result shows that Smith Corporation Berhad gross profit margin is lower than the industry average. There is small variance between Smith Corporation Berhad gross profit margin and the industry average by 4.5%. This situation is poor to the company due to underpricing. Based on the result, it indicates that the company is making 9.15 cents gross profit for every RM1 ringgit revenue made after deducting cost of goods sold. The possible causes is the company has higher cost of goods sold. The company can improve their gross profit margin by reduce cost of goods sold without changing the selling price by finding low price supplier or using cheap raw materials. Next is operating profit margin. Operating profit margin for Smith Corporation Berhad is 1.97%. Meanwhile, the industry average is 6.04%. The result shows that Smith Corporation Berhad operating profit margin is lower than the industry average. There is small variance between Smith Corporation Berhad operating profit margin and the industry average by 4.07%. This situation is unsatisfied to the company because the company not efficiently converting revenue into profit. From the result, it indicates that for every RM1 ringgit of net sales, the business managed to have 1.97 cents as operating profit after considering all the operating expenses. The possible causes is because the company used too low prices on product or excessively high cost of goods sold. The company can improve operating profit margin by implementing better management control, more efficient use of resources, improve pricing, and more effective marketing. Furthermore, net profit margin. Net profit margin for Smith Corporation Berhad is 0.66%. Meanwhile, the industry average is 5.8%. The result shows that Smith Corporation Berhad net profit margin is far lower from the industry average. There is huge variance between Smith Corporation Berhad net profit margin and the industry average by 5.14%. This situation considered as bad to the company. Based on the result, it indicates that for every RM 1 ringgit of net sales, the business managed to have 0.66% as net profit after considering all expenses including dividend to preferring shareholders. The possible causes is inefficient management and weak pricing strategies. The company can improve their net profit margin by increased revenue by selling more goods or services and reduce costs by finding low cost of materials.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Zamir Mustaqim bin Jamil from class AC1105F. Today, I will tell you how to calculate the profitability ratio on the return on assets. First thing first, we need the formula. The net income available to common shareholder is divided by the total assets and times by 100 to get the total percentage. So in this case, the net income available to the common shareholder is 821,000 is divided by 112,617,000 times by 100. So we will get 0.66%. Uh, the return of assets of SMIS Corporation Berhad is lower compared to the industry average, which is 3.6%, and this condition is very poor for the company. So this is because the management of the company is inefficient in generating earnings from their assets. So our recommendation to overcome this problem is that the company should reduce assets costs such as inventory costs. Okay, now I will tell you about how to calculate the return on equity. The formula is the net income available to common shareholder is divided by common equity and times by 100. So the net income available is still the same, which is 821,000 divided by 61,354,000 times by 100. So we will get 1.34%. uh, the return of equity is lower than the industry average, which is 5.16%. The condition is still very poor, and this is because the company mismanaged and could have reinvest earnings into unproductive assets. So our recommendation to overcome this problem is that the management can increase their profit margin, such as increasing price of product or services and reducing costs. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, now I will present about the common size ratio for Smith Corporation Berhad and how to interpret it. So firstly, as you can see, this is list of item for non-current asset and non-current liability for both year 2019 and 2018. So how do we get the change percentage for every item is for non-current asset, each item listed we will divide by the total asset to get the percentage, and same also with the non-current liabilities. Every item will be divided by total equity and liability to get the percentage. Okay, after we get the percentage change for every item, we can use it to compare between both years to see whether there is an increase or decrease. For property, plant and equipment, property, plant and equipment has slightly decreased by 0.79% from 31.57% in 2018 to 30.78% in 2019 due to depreciation factor. Okay, next for land use rights. Land use rights has decreased from 10.43% in 2018 to 0% in 2019 because in 2019 there is no amount of land use rights. Next for rights of use asset. Right of use asset only occurred in 2019 with 13.88% because the company has recognized lease asset on that year. For investment properties has decreased from 3.48% in 2018 to 0.76% in 2019 due to company has disposed of some of investment property. Okay, next, deferred tax asset. Deferred tax assets increased a little bit from 0.05% in 2018 to 0.08% in 2019 because the company pays its tax weeks or months before the due date or pays too much tax. Next, for investment in subsidiaries and other receivable. Investment in subsidiaries and other receivable has no change respectively because there is no transaction happen for both years. Okay, now let's move to the interpretation of non-current liability. Firstly, for loan and borrowings. Loan and borrowings has decreased significantly from 5.4% in 2018 to 4.02% in 2019 because of company has repaid the loans and borrowings in the year. Secondly is lease liabilities. There is no lease liabilities in 2018 but only occur in 2019 with 0.81% changes. Okay, last but not least, for deferred tax liabilities. Deferred tax liabilities has slightly decreased from 0.15% in 2018 to 0.14% in 2019 due to from varying asset depreciation schedules.
For the conclusions, financial analysis is the process of evaluating business, projects, budgets, and other finance-related transactions to determine their performance and sustainability. Typically, financial analysis is used to analyze whether an entity is stable, solvent, liquid, or profitable enough to warrant a monetary investment. SMIS Corporation Berhad has an unsatisfactory performance for overall in management and financing their business. The company should consider improve their business to continue to compete with the other competitors. Therefore, the external users, especially the investor, will only look at the company's financial health that compare with industry average. Thus, as an automotive big company in Malaysia, it is still important to have an excellent financial ratio to present a good trend analysis over the year because the current investor and supplier only want to cooperate with a business that is able to pay back their money. If it is conducted internally, financial analysis can help managers make future business decisions or review historical trends for past successes. If conducted externally, financial analysis can help investors choose the best possible investment opportunities. That's all from us. Thank you.